Hi, it's Fleur here from Little Desert Quilts. We're going to do advent calendars. Now, I've got lots of panels that are already available. Most of the work is done because the way the panels are printed means it's really easy to turn this into an advent calendar. So they come with instructions printed on them and you can simply follow those instructions. But today I'm also going to show you something else you can do to zhuzh it up just a little bit. So here's your advent calendars. They usually have a picture at the top, and then look for the ones that have got these elongated pockets. Now you might think, how the heck do they turn into pockets? It is very simple. On the side it says fold and fold. So if you fold in those two places, it creates pockets. Now the one I've got here, I have already made up. Whoops, just drop that to the floor. This is it here. Made it. Look, that's it. So from the very long panel, it turns into a much shorter panel, and then there's your pockets. So it's folded and folded on those two folds and creates a very simple advent calendar. Now what I've done with this one as well, I haven't worried about the binding part. Oops, just pick that up again. So just let me show you that again. From this big, okay, it turns into this big when you fold up all those pockets. It's approximately 1/2 metre wide. I used a little bit more than 1/2 metre on my backing. I think it was 52 centimetres I ended up cutting just to make sure I had enough to do the back. Now, I have made this and it's nearly finished. There's my back, nice clean back. But you'll also notice there's this flappy bit because I haven't quite finished it off because I wanted to show you how I did it. Now, I'm just going to turn it back through, because this is a finishing off trick that'll save you a lot of worry about binding. You don't have to do any binding. This is what's called an envelope finish. So I'm just going to turn this back through, and this way I can show you a bit of the process. So at the moment, the right side is in there, and the right side of the back in there. You may have noticed by now that I've got a slit in the middle of my back. So I've put that slit about 2 inches from the top, and I've made it big enough to make sure I can get my hand in there and pull everything through. But I'm still a long way from the edge because I don't want to be anywhere near that edge or the other edge, and then there's that flap that goes over it. So the flap is on the inside. It's neatened off on the edges. So when I turn this through, it'll all be around the right way. Now the other trick I want to tell you is this is the wadding that I used, and it is Pellin. It's 640 Pellin. Comes on a roll like this. It's fusible on one side. Now usually you would fuse your wadding on and then do your quilting. I have not fused my wadding on. In fact, the fuse side, so this is the rough side, this is the fuse side, is out. It is not against my quilt top, if you like, because when I turn this through, I'm going to then fuse it, and that's why I haven't finished it, because if I fused it, I wouldn't have been able to turn this back through and show you. So my fuse side is out. This is the wrong side of my backing. This is the wrong side, if you like, of my top. We can't see it under there, but you can see my quilting lines. See my quilting lines? So that is the top part of it. And this is where the pockets, this is holding the pockets. So if I go back to this, when I turn it through, you'll see there's quilted lines, and I simply quilted from the bottom. So once I had done my folds, and I use an iron to press those folds into place, and I also used the hot hammer. So my original hot hammer looked like this. This one's got a nice straight edge. Because it wasn't long enough, I thought, you know what, I'm going to open myself a new big one. So these are the new hot rulers. So I used a combination of both of these. Now when you lay these down on your fabric, and I'll show you this a bit more, it doesn't move, and you can turn the edge over and give it a nice crisp edge. So this is what I was using to get a nice crisp fold. They also come in some smaller sizes as well. So you do your folds, fold them, pin them, and then I put my wadding on. Then I stitched through the wadding all the way through from one end to the other. And to put a little bit more quilting in the top part, I just eyeballed. You can see where I started here and went through. I was sewing this from the right side when I just had the panel and the wadding on the back. I have used self-threading needles, they are, self-threading hand needles to then pull my threads through from the front to the back and tie them off. So that's why these ones here that you can see that every second one, because with the pockets I started at the bottom, went all the way to the top. With the extra quilting I started here. Now I can chop them off. I just wanted to show them to you so that I've pulled them through from the back, I've knotted them off, and I've buried them within the wadding. And the reason that I want to cut them off is because those red threads just might show through the pellin and the light background of the advent calendar. So by chopping them off, they're all gone. Now I'll pull this back through. So we've done all that, done the quilting, laid it out, got our slit in there, have already put the flap on the back, stitched all the way around the edge. Now, when I was stitching, I did have this pinned down so that it would not get, so that it wouldn't get caught up. All that, I had it pinned in place so that there was no way it was going to get scrunched up. I've taken the pins out. Now, I turn it all back through. So again, make sure your hole is big enough that you can get everything through that hole. Use a little tool of your favourite choice. You know, I like to use my curved awl or a finger presser or maybe even a chopstick to get to your corners and push your corners out. I'm also going to turn my iron on while I'm talking to you so that warms up, because when I press this in place, because it's got that fusible wadding on the back, which is now on the inside, see it in there? When I fuse that, it's all going to sit down flat. Your back is smooth and you don't have your quilting line showing through to the back. Now that may or may not be what you want to do, but I just find it a really good handy way to do small quilts, wall hanging style quilts, and I thought let's do it for the advent calendar. I've done all that, and I would just work my edges and make sure I get them nice and smooth before I start pressing, because when I press this, it's going to close up that slit, and that slit you won't see because this will get folded down. Now you do need to hand stitch this on. You can't machine stitch it because then you'll have a line through the front. But you don't know, without me telling you, you would never know that there was a slit in the middle of that, and then all of your edges are machine stitched and turned through, and there's no hand stitching around the edge. The only hand stitching is across the bottom of the flap. So I'm going to press this and then come back and show you what it looks like. So I got that done. Any excess that you find on the backing when you press that down, any excess, just push it up under and hide it under this flap. I've got a little bit of extra there. No one's going to see it, because when you put your flap down, it's all nice and smooth, all lovely. When I hand stitch that flap down, you won't see that little bit of extra backing that's ended up underneath that flap. And that's the beauty of having that slit in it, pushing it through, doing that whole envelope out thing, and then putting that flap over. No one sees what's under there. That's your little secret. So there you go. You put a hanging rod through there and you're done. Now, that was simple. Just follow the instructions really, except I didn't do binding, I did an envelope finish. Now, I'm going to do a different one. So this one, same style, different brand. So here's your thing. This strip on the side, it doesn't tell you, but I'm assuming that's for your hanging strips. So that's what I'm going to use it for. So I cut that off to start with. Now it says in the instructions, do not quilt your pockets. And I thought, why not? How can I quilt my pockets? So this one, I quilted the pockets. I did the folding. So I just folded. Oops, I have to show you one here because that's stitched already. I just folded at the bottom. Whoops, sorry, can't see it. So it says fold and fold. I just did the bottom one and I used my tool to get a nice crisp fold. And then what I did is I put some strips of the 630. Now the 630 is the lightweight, so this is 630. It's lightweight pellin. Again, it's fusible. I just cut a 1/2 meter piece and then I cut myself 2-inch strips. Now I'm going to show you how I did that. So I'll just get this set up and then I'll show you how I cut the 2-inch strips. I folded the pellin in half, laid it down on my table, grabbed my Stripology XL ruler, so this is the one with the slits in it, lined it up on one of the folds, and then I just simply cut. Now there's four lots of pockets, so I needed to cut 4 lots of 2-inch, so 2 through the 2-inch slit, through the 4-inch slit, through the 6-inch slit, and through the 8-inch slit. As simple as that. I've got my strips cut. And then I applied these, 1, 2, 3, 4, there they are. I applied these, ironed them on, so these are fusible. Ironed them on, what did I do with that one? Ironed them on and then did the quilting. So I pressed this here like this, and I ironed these onto here. So whether you iron them on first and then do your fold, it really doesn't matter. They are a little bit narrower than the actual pocket, and I figured that that would be okay. Now the reason I'm using 630 is because this is the thinnest and I didn't want to take up a lot of bulk in the pocket. So you need to do this, just the top layer of your pocket, your wadding in the middle, and then your bottom layer. Fuse it in place, and then I just did simple stitching from one end to the other. I used the edge of my foot to space out my stitching. I ended up with 5 or 6 lines on there. And then I have got my pockets quilted. So then I come back and do the second fold. So I do this on all 4 first. Once I've quilted it, then I come back and do the second fold on here. And then I'm going to create my pockets. Now with this one, I've put some 640 on the back of the picture at the top. Now I haven't quilted this top yet because I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. But you can see I have stitched, it's kind of hard here. I have stitched, I started at the top and I have done a locking stitch just underneath the picture, and I have stitched all the way down. Now I started in the center. I did the center one first, and then I did this side, then I did this side. Made sure I did a locking stitch. And again, I will use my self-threading needle. Whoops, hang on a minute. I can get my chair over here to show you. Just grab a self-threading needle, and that way it's super simple to poke these back through. Let's get that other one out from underneath so I don't stitch through that as well. I just simply poke the needle through where I want it to go first, then put my thread at the top of this needle and just click it into place. Of course, it's not going to cooperate while I'm trying to do it on camera. Click it into place, and then you can pull that needle through to the other side. It's already in place. Once you've got them out the other side, so you've got 2 threads on the back side, just wind them around, click them into the back of the needle. Because it's self-threading, you don't have to put them through the eye. So I just wrap it around a few times and then do a tiny stitch that does not come out at the front, so you don't see it again, and just pull that through, and that secures off those threads, and then you can trim them off once you've wrapped them around and pulled them through. But the self-threading needle certainly makes that job a whole lot easier. So I do have quite a few different designs of the Advent calendars available. They are in the Seasons Greetings album on the Little Desert Quilts page. So any of these are available. So you just go to the Little Desert Quilts Facebook page, find the Seasons Greetings album, and you can have a look at all the different ones that are here. So different pictures on the top, different colours. I'm sure you'll find one that you like. Then I have a totally different style. This one here is very different to all the others. That one. And you can, when you make them up, you can give them with gifts in the pockets already, you know, whatever you want to put in them. So they could be chockies or little treats or toys or little sewing tools. And here's another one. I'm going to make this one up, and I am going to do the padded pockets. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I need to move some things around so that you can see, and I'll try and show you how I actually do it. Okay, so I've got an ironing mat here on the table, then my fusible Pellin strips. I'm going to put the fuse side down now. I can just see where the fold mark is, so I'm going to sit that down there. Then I'm going to place this over the top to create my nice edge. Grab the iron. So this is actually doing two jobs at once. I'm going to put a nice crisp fold in my pocket. Then I need to remove the hot hammer. Hopefully that's still in place. And then I will give it another press and that'll fuse. I am going to need to turn it over because the glue is actually on the other side. So I do need to turn that over and press it again from the other side to make sure that I get that fused on. And then I would work my way up the panel doing that to all of them. You just need to make sure you be putting it in the right place so that when you can see that, the second fold will occur there. We're not going to put the second fold in. You don't put the second fold in until you've done the quilting on the first fold. So you just want to put this in, so that's fused down now, and that's a nice crisp fold. I would whack a couple of pins in there as well, just to hold the edges in place. Just to hold that in place because it's only fused on one side. Because this, you need to put all four in, quilt all four, and then you come back and put in the second fold. All right, so I turn that over again. It's a bit of a process, but you just work your way up the panel. Now you do not have to quilt the pockets. In fact, the instructions say do not quilt your pockets, but I like the idea of having a little bit of padding in the pocket. So again, I'm going to put that on the lining up with the fold with my hot hammer. Put that in there so that I get a nice crisp line. Put that over the top. Grab my iron. Give that a press. Then I remember to take the hot hammer out. Take the hot hammer out. Put that back over because we've got a nice crisp edge. Turn it over so that we can fuse the Pellin on from the other side, and then put some pins in so that it all stays in place while we quilt. And I'm going to put the pins in from this side. Always put the pins in so that you can see them from the top, so you know where they are. You don't end up running over them or sewing them in. So I'm going to do this to all four of the pockets, and then I'm going to quilt it. Okay, so I've done all the quilting. See the quilted flaps? So I've done four of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start from the top now. And using pins, you can also press this second fold in if you want to, but I am just simply going to line up my top edge where I want it to be and pin this in place. Now, the next stitching is going to go down these lines. So in that case, I am going to put my pins in this way. Get them all lined up. Don't want to pin to the actual, I've got my pressing mat under here. Don't want to pin it to the pressing mat. But I'm just lining, might be easier without the pressing mat. Just lining them up and pinning. So that's my first row done. I'm just pinning every one of those lines that has to be stitched just to keep everything in alignment. Okay, now the second row, just get it into position where I'm happy with it and pin. So I will continue to do that and then I'll stitch and show you what happens next. So I'm just going to show you how I prepare the backing. So I've got my backing cut to size for the next advent calendar. Now I want to put a slit in here. So I'm going to fold it in half and find the centre of my backing. Fold it in half. Just going to put a little finger press in that, but I'm also going to pop a pin in that crease so I can see it. Just like that. And then fold it in half the other way. Actually, I probably don't even need to leave the pin in there. Just going to grab my ruler. Probably don't need to pin the pin if I do it this way. And I'm going to go, now I've got a bit of selvage here which I'm leaving on until I join them together, but I want to move down from the selvage, so about 2.5 inches off the edge. So I'm measuring 2.5 inches from the bottom of the selvage, and then this is the fold at this end, and I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches, which will give me a 10-inch slit. So I'm actually going to put my cutter in at the 5 inches in and pull it, get out of the way and pull it back to me like that, so I don't cut beyond there. So there you go. I've got the slit. See that? The slit in the backing piece. I need to put my flap on. So my flap has been 3 edges folded and stitched, and I need to put it so that it ends up there. So again, I'm going to fold it in half, find the centre, so I can still see my centre crease in my backing piece. Put a good crease in this so I can see it. Now that's got to end up there, which means I have to flip it over and sew it on up there. Pin that. So I'm going to stitch along here. Stitch this in place before I put the back and the front together. So I'm just going to go back to the machine and pin and stitch this, and then I'll show you the very final step. Okay, flap attached and pressed. Now I'm going to pin it from the wrong side. Now the reason I need to pin, so I'm pinning that flap to the backing from the wrong side, and I'm also going to pin that slit closed so it doesn't gape or do anything funny when I'm stitching it together, because we need to be able to access the pins so we can turn this through. Right, so that's got that pinned, that flap pinned down, and now we put the two pieces together. Backing right side up with the pins underneath. Quilt top, or in this case advent calendar, make sure you've got the top up the top where the hanging sleeve is going to be. Put that right sides down so that the two right sides are actually facing each other. That's the way it needs to be. And just line that up and pin it. So you don't need to see me pin it. That'll just take time. So I'm going to pin that and sew it. Then I'm going to show you what it looks like when I turn it through. Now when you finish sewing, before you turn it inside out, stick your hand in there, take the pins out, stick your hand in there and run your fingers really quite firmly around all the edges and make sure that your seams have caught both back and front. Now I did this before and I needed to re-sew a couple of the sides. I was trying to make it, you know, I didn't go in far enough. So just double check it before you pull it through. So I've done that. I've restitched a couple. So they should all be good now. Turn them through. Oh, I forgot to do it. Trim your corners. Trim your corners. Trim off any excess. I go within about 1/4 inch of the seam. Trim my corners at about a 45-degree angle. And like I showed you right at the start, you turn those corners out and then the whole thing is done. Let's get those corners turned out. And if you've lined everything up the right way. Now this one does not have any wadding in the bottom part where the pockets are, but it does have the reversed wadding in the top part because I did the quilting on that as well. So then you just roll your corners, roll your edges, get them all nice and smooth. When you're happy with it, then I will fuse that down. It will only fuse the top half. It won't actually, there's nothing to fuse the bottom half. And then of course I will hand stitch down that flap. And there's my next advent calendar. All done. So thanks for joining me for advent calendar class today. And If you want to get some advent calendars, have a look at what I've got in the Season's Greetings album at Little Desert Quilts. Got any questions? Just ask me. See you next time. Bye-bye.